It's our first discussion post.
Aww.
This week we'll be solidifying our learning around the first chapter of the book, which is all about classroom procedures.
So we'll start by giving you what a discussion post will be, and then we'll do a little discussion ourselves to help you extend the concepts of the first chapter.
So here's what the post will be at the end of all of this. After reading pages 1 and 2, discuss the relationship between planning for physical space classroom procedures and planning your digital space classroom procedures. Where do people go for procedure ideas? We would love for you guys to share any resources that you've come across so that we can all learn together. And what will you need to communicate on your website? So don't forget that all of this learning will combine into a website that you have chosen to communicate with a certain audience.
And while Amanda was discussing, I thought we'd point out that we are at the Ed Center, and there is a little construction going on, a little roof construction due to the hailstorm last spring. So if you hear some little crashing and banging, that's what is going on. We're keeping it real, folks, here with our flipped learning. So the first chapter of Classroom Management in the Digital Age is about establishing classroom procedures for using devices. And there is a list of considerations that you might think through when planning for using technology in your classroom, such as calling students' attention, communicating the day's agenda, how do you take attendance, and just the procedures of sharing your devices, and how do you name the naming conventions on what you might use for your Google Docs.
Yeah, so there's a ton of procedures that you can think through, which is similar to the many procedures that you've already planned out for your physical space classroom. But what Carrie and I wanted to do is just discuss some of our own experiences as classroom teachers in either one-to-one classrooms or shared device classrooms, or we just have a couple of device kind of classrooms. We've come from all of those environments, and so we just want to take a second to share some of our mishaps when we made some assumptions around these procedures, or when we just didn't take the time to plan and had to learn the hard way. So I can go ahead and start off and just by talking about in the book, when I was reading page 8, which is all around communicating the day's agenda and homework, I was thinking back to my own experience in my classroom, even just last year. After having devices in my classroom for many years, I still never really got good at this. I was an elementary teacher, and I think I just came from the assumption that students wouldn't be active in going and searching these things. It would, if they were absent one day, they wouldn't go to a digital platform and be like, oh, here's what I'm missing. It would just be like when they come back, I would have it all there for them, but not communicated. And so I think about what was missed through that. And I think something that was missed through that was that parents never saw ahead of time what students were doing and what we were learning in the classroom. I would send out my newsletter, but it was just a list of topics that we were going to be learning about.
Yeah.
They never got to know what the students would actually be doing, and that's what's important, is what students are doing. That's what parents can add on to. That's how parents can interact with their kids at home. But I always waited for the product to go out, and that's the only time that students...
Not the process of how you were getting to that product.
Exactly, and I think that so much was lost in that. And I wonder if I was a secondary teacher, would I be more intentional with that? Because I would have the expectation that, older students should be seeking out those platforms.
Yeah.
But that was definitely an assumption that I had made that I think made it so that I missed out on something in my classroom.
That reminds me of the first time when I had devices in my classroom and I was teaching 3rd grade, and I had a student who was out, and I get an email in the middle of the day just saying, hey, Mrs. Zanetti, I'm out today. What can I be working on? I'm homesick, but I don't want to come home to schoolwork. And I had never even thought of a student being that proactive in their learning. They were like, I'm bored. I don't want to just watch TV. How can I just keep up on the learning even though I'm not allowed at school because I have a fever? Mm-hmm. So that kind of changed my thinking, and it was motivated by an 8-year-old saying, hey, help me out. What can I do?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so wonderful when they want to learn more and they don't want to miss out, and that we have the tools available so that they don't have to.
Yeah. I also was thinking about the very first time when the devices were rolled into my classroom. Like, they literally oh, you're getting these, and here they are. And so my students knew they were coming. We didn't know what day they would actually arrive, and I just wasn't thinking about what this process would look like. And all of a sudden, they just kind of rolled in on a cart. Like,
Literally rolled
like a cart,
in.
and not even like a laptop charging cart. It was, here is a cart of Chromebooks. And so we were excited, and I passed them all out. And I did think of, okay, number one gets number one. You know, I have my students numbered in the classroom, and I did think that far. But then it was like, we're packing up for the day, and there's maybe 5 minutes left before the bell rings. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, now what? Now what am I going to do with these devices? And they're spread across 22 desks in my classroom, and I need to get them all back stacked on this cart, I guess, and figure out how I'm going to actually charge these. And so, you know, we fumbled through, and I had to pick like my top most dependable students to collect them as fast as we could, and then they had to depend on someone else in their little table group to be able to get their supplies back into the right spot. So it became this, okay, we were already putting art supplies back, or, you know, folders, books for the day in a certain spot. We just had to be more of a team in doing it, but it really was a moment of panic right before the bell rang, and the classroom was a mess. So
yeah, and I actually think about the secondary environment too, where they're moving from period to period. At a lot of schools, you know, number one has number one Chromebook, but they take it from class to class to class, and so then what is the procedure for getting those Chromebooks back and charged overnight if they're not taking the devices home? And so I know a lot of schools, they'll have kind of an advisory in the morning and then a short advisory at the end of the day too, so that they can have access to the charge cart. And then other environments, they just have charge carts in the classroom. And so whatever your last class is, you just plug it in there, and then you just drop by in the morning, pick it up real quick.
Yeah, okay.
Leave. So
that's creative.
A lot of people have different ways of doing it. And tracking the device and making sure that it's staying safe and protected and all those things. But it's definitely a consideration that I think everybody runs into, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, right.
We should have thought about this.
Yeah, exactly. All right. If we look at some of the other topics that come up, some of them might be more school-specific or Jeffco-specific. So at your school, you might have an expectation for bell work, which is a consideration in the book that came up on page 11. So on page 11, it was the activator. What are your students going to do when they first walk into the room? Some schools have an expectation of what they need to do, like write down their learning targets, figure out their success criteria. So really think about how technology can be incorporated into that, so that you are not spending time later on in class fumbling through, you know, starting up the technology or getting signed into certain things. So how can you incorporate those two together? Printing might be specific to Jeffco, really.
Yeah.
It's a district decision that Chromebooks don't.
You can't print from your Chromebooks, but and then there's also the approved tools list. So you are going to be working through those pieces of Chromebooks, like, can I print from it? And you're also going to be working through, what are the tools that I can actually use on my Chromebook? So if you come across questions where you're wondering if something is possible, like maybe you read about a tool in this book, or you're also doing the other book study with the Google Infuse Classroom, if you have questions, make sure you can feel free to ask us, but we also want to point you in the direction of your DTL. They are your first line of defense when it comes to all of your school's technology needs, and they'll be able to help you out.
So really use that resource, especially as you dive into this new journey of either starting to plan for using technology or revamping the way that you've been doing it. The DTL is really an invaluable resource that you have available to you. All right, so I just want to reiterate that the discussion is going to be the process for learning. The website will be the product that combines your overall understanding of all the concepts that come up in this book. So use the discussion to develop your own learning, your own opinions about all of this, and also learn from each other. So really build on to each other's ideas, offer what you have to offer within the discussion, and know that you'll decide on what you need to communicate based on what you chose as your audience, or who you chose as your audience. So some of it might translate over perfectly, where you have your discussion and that's exactly what you put in your website, but some of it won't be as smooth as that. But just know that we have a process for learning, and then we have a product, which is the website.
So answer the question. We've posted it. This video is part of the resources. Make sure you answer the question. If you will not answer the question where it says make a comment, you can click on the question part, and then you're able to discuss through there. You're able to see each other's and reply to each other's, and if you notice you made a grammar mistake, you can go in and change your answer too.
All right, so we look forward to involving ourselves in this
Yeah.
discussion as well. We cannot wait to learn from all of you and continue to add on to our own understanding too. So thanks for participating.
Looking forward to it.